We all want to get smarter quicker. Right. So today we're going to deep dive into some really cool new research. And this one hints at a pretty wild idea.
It does.
That the key to staying young might be
Yeah.
inside our own aging bodies.
It's an interesting concept, right? It really is.
Yeah.
It's we've been looking at a study actually from Cell Research, came out this year.
Okay.
And it's giving us a new perspective on why we see this decline in immunity and blood health as we age.
Right.
And the takeaway for you listening is that the aging of our blood may not be this like one-way street that we always thought it was.
Yeah. So blood, the stuff that keeps us going, we all know that.
Keeps us alive.
It's constantly being renewed by these little amazing things called hematopoietic stem cells.
Got it.
Or HSCs.
HSCs for short.
HSCs for short. And they're like master builders in our bone marrow, constantly making new blood cells.
Yeah, they're the factories.
Yeah.
That just churn out all the different cells in our blood and our immune system.
Right.
All from that one stem cell population.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So as we age, typically these HSCs, they get a little bit they get a little bit tired.
They do. They get tired. They get a little bit less efficient. They may accumulate errors as they're replicating and dividing, or they might not differentiate properly into the right type of blood cell that the body needs at that time.
So they might not even know what to become, basically.
They get a little confused sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to be?
Exactly.
And then that can lead to the kind of problems that we see in older adults.
Yeah.
Weaker immune system, poor blood health, that kind of thing.
So weaker immune systems, obviously.
Right.
We know as we get older, we're more susceptible to disease.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets really interesting.
It does.
This study suggests that not all of the master builders are showing their age in older people.
Yeah.
There are some that are still
strong,
super,
There are youthful stem cells that are hanging out in the bone marrow.
Yeah. So how do we find these special cells?
Yeah, that's what the researchers wanted to know.
Yeah.
They found a particular marker.
Okay.
It's a protein on the surface of these stem cells called CD150.
CD150.
CD150. And this is the kind of marker that tells us which ones are young and which ones are not.
Okay, so CD150, how does that work?
So what they found is that the levels of CD150 on these HSCs tend to increase as we age.
Okay.
What's interesting is that high levels of this CD150 seem to mark a stem cell that can proliferate, so it can still divide and make copies of itself. But it has a harder time actually differentiating into a healthy, functional blood cell.
Huh. So it's like it's still active, it's still kind of going, but it's not.
It's almost like it's spinning its wheels.
Yeah.
It's just making more of itself, but not actually making the good stuff that we need.
So it's kind of getting stuck in a loop.
It's like stuck in a loop. Yeah. And so those are not the good ones.
Right.
The low CD150 HSCs, on the other hand, these are the ones that seem to hold on to their youthful regenerative power.
Right.
They can still effectively regenerate all the different blood cells and immune cells that we need.
Okay.
And so that's what makes them kind of special.
Much like the HSCs in younger people.
Yeah, much like the ones you'd see in a younger person.
So how do we know? How do we really know that these CD150 low cells...
Right.
They're so powerful.
So to really test this out,
they
did a really cool experiment with mice.
Okay.
They took these CD150 high and low HSCs from old mice, and they transplanted them into young or middle-aged mice who had their immune systems and blood systems kind of wiped out so they could really track what these cells were doing.
Okay, so they kind of reset.
They reset the system.
Yeah.
And said, okay, let's see what these different populations of cells can do.
Okay.
And the results were really remarkable.
I bet.
The mice that received the CD150 low cells, those had much better immune function, healthier blood cell counts.
Wow.
And incredible, they lived longer.
Longer lives.
Longer lives than the mice that received the CD150 high cells, or even a mix of both.
Oh, so they didn't even need the mix. It was just the low.
They just needed the low ones. The low ones were enough.
The low ones were enough just to give them...
To give them a better life.
Longer lives.
Longer, healthier lives.
That's incredible.
It's really cool, right?
And you said something about their blood being younger, too.
Yes, and this is where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
They looked at the blood of these mice using something called epigenetic markers.
Yeah.
And these are like little switches on our DNA.
Yeah.
They can change how our genes work without actually changing the underlying genetic code.
Right.
They're kind of like a biological clock for the cell.
Right.
And what they saw was the blood in the mice that got the CD150 low cells actually appeared epigenetically younger.
So younger blood.
Younger blood.
Just by getting these.
Just from getting these special cells.
Wow. So what does this mean for us humans down the road?
That's a good question, Ray. I mean, this is all in mice right now.
Yeah.
But if these findings hold true in humans,
right,
this might be a way that we can actually rejuvenate our own aging blood and immune systems.
Yeah.
It could have a huge impact on improving our health span.
So not just our lifespan.
Right. Not just how long we live,
but how well we're living.
But how well we're living.
Yeah.
And potentially even our lifespan as well.
It's pretty amazing. So it's early days, mostly mice so far.
It is early days.
Well, what's the next step?
Well, the big question now is, how do we translate this into something that could actually help people?
Yeah.
Can we safely target and remove or suppress those less effective CD150 high cells without harming the good ones?
Right.
And that's a big challenge.
Oh, yeah.
But if we can crack that, then we can really start to explore how we might use this knowledge to develop therapies for humans.
But the fundamental idea, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about.
It is mind-blowing.
That there are these reserves of youth in our aging bodies.
Exactly. It's like hidden fountains of youth, right?
Which kind of
sprinkled throughout our bone marrow.
Beautiful in a way.
It is beautiful, yeah. It's like this reminder that even as we age, there's still this potential for renewal.
It really changes how we think about aging, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. It kind of flips it on its head a little bit.
Yeah, so the key takeaway for you listening today, within our aging blood, there's this special group of stem cells.
Right.
That are identifiable by their low levels of CD150.
You got it.
And they have the potential to revitalize our blood.
That's right.
Our immune systems.
Yeah.
And that offers a path to a longer and healthier life.
And a really exciting thought to kind of leave you with is, what if this decline that we associate with aging isn't really a one-way street? What if hidden within us all along are these untapped reserves of youthful potential just waiting to be unlocked? And how might our growing understanding of these cellular markers like CD150 revolutionize the way we approach health and longevity? It's a lot to think about, and something that we're going to be following very closely as the research develops.
As always, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive.
It was a pleasure being here.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.